Right, today we want to move on, and we'll be looking at integrated reporting. Integrated reporting. Right, you would find that integrated reporting came up due to the need to move on and provide information that can be useful to many stakeholders. It was found that during the previous era, more focus was on the needs of the shareholders without taking into account the needs of other stakeholders. And the focus was mainly on short term instead of looking at the long term. So that's when there was a need to do integrated reporting, whereby the reports that are produced by management will not just focus on the financial statements. So you'd find that if you look at financial statements that were produced long back, they just focus on the preparation of financial statements, your profit or loss, your statement of financial position, and your statement of cash flows. But now of late, there's been a requirement that organizations, to ensure good corporate governance, they should provide what is called an integrated report. So an integrated report takes into account the interests of the various stakeholders. It gives more information and adds value to what is reported to the users of the financial statements. Right. So let's look at integrated reporting. Right. I think you know that your next task, you also have to do it with your fellow group members. Please, you have to do with your fellow group members. So of course, we'll provide insights in the class of what you can go and maybe contribute them. But the next task that you'll be doing is also a group. And remember that those things that you have to submit as a group, you are reminded that normally they say in your group only one person should submit the report if nothing changed. If you submit different ones, they will consider the last one. So you should coordinate with your group members. So even if one person submits, they will be able to connect that assignment to all the members of the group. And if you submit multiple assignments, they usually take the last one. So you will have to verify. I will have to verify that, but they usually take the last one. So it's one assignment for all of them. And please participate in your groups, because if you don't participate, there will be a time that group members will be able to comment on each other. So they might give negative comments, and that can negatively affect you. So make sure that you participate in the groups. Please make sure that you participate in your groups. Right. So now let's look at our integrated report. So I said, because of the fraudulent activities and bad corporate governance that even led to some companies failing. I think here in South Africa, we've got examples of Steinhoff, which had investors losing millions and billions, in fact, in a very short period of time. We had issues with VBS, and we are well aware of the state capture issues, which involved many Gupta-related companies. So you find that with most of those things, there were issues that had to do with the reporting. Like investors were even buying shares in other companies, and suppliers were having deals with other companies basing on the financial statements that were prepared. So they didn't have enough information. So the move towards integrated reporting is a way of ensuring that stakeholders can get all the information that they need. So the focus is no longer now on the shareholders only. The focus is no longer now on just the past financial statements, but it's about the whole strategy of the organization and how it intends to move forward, how it is creating value. Right. So an integrated report is used to communicate to stakeholders the way in which the organization's activities interactions and relationships create value, preserve value, and erode value. For the organization and its stakeholders. Right. The main aim of the integrated report is to provide insight on how the organization interacts with the external environment. Remember that they get resources from the external environment, which is labor, raw materials, technology, and stuff like that. And the capitals to create value. Right, the modern thinking is no longer about financial capital only. We now think about financial capital and other capitals, which we shall look at today at a later stage. Right. Nature and quality of relationships with stakeholders. We have the government, we have trade unions, we have pressure groups, we have our local parliamentary representatives, we have got our customers, we have got the community at large, we've got the banks. We have to interact with them. How are we interacting with them? Right. The impact of the resources of the business. On the financials and on each other. How do our resources, our technology, our physical resources, our intellectual property, how do they affect each other, and how do they help in advancing the cause of all the stakeholders of the entity? Right. Right. So you'd find that the purpose of the report of the integrated report guidelines, right, is to provide guidelines to providers of financial information and content elements. Governing overall content of the integrated report. The framework, sorry, yeah. So there's a framework of 2021, which was created with the major aim of giving guidance on how the reports should be made. Right. So it should include a statement from those charged with governance. Who are the directors, the board of directors? Acknowledging their responsibility. For integrity in integrated reporting. So they should acknowledge in the report that they are responsible for ensuring that the information that is obtained and that is provided to the users of the integrated report actually reflects what is on the ground. Right. So they should make sure that they include that report within the report. Right. And an opinion or conclusion whether or the extent to which the report is prepared according to the framework. So those charged with governance should ensure that the report that they produce is produced according to the framework, so that it can be useful to the users of that report. Right. Fundamental concepts. Right, they are very important concepts which are at the core of the integrated financial reporting framework. Right, one of the main ones is value creation, preservation, or erosion. The organization and assets. Right. So the report should report on how the organization has created value for itself and for others. Right. A value creation is reflected in an increase generated on the capitals by the entity. So if the capitals that we obtained from the external environment have increased over the period, that means we've created value. Right. Value preservation is reflected in the maintenance of the capital. So we preserve value by maintaining the capital so that they remain in a state that they can be able to generate value. Right. Then value erosion is reflected by decreases in the capital. So if the capitals that were provided with by the various stakeholders have gone down over the period, that means we've eroded the capitals. For example, if there's a loss from a financial point of view, and if our human resources have gone down, if our intellectual capital has diminished its economic value, that means we have what? We have reduced the value of the entity. Right. So there are two aspects to this value. First of all, there is two aspects. That is value created, preserved, and eroded for the organization. That is the first aspect. And others. We're talking about stakeholders now. So the organization has to create value for itself and also for others. So you'd find that long back, our reporting was mainly focused on only looking at the entity. The main stakeholder that we only focused on was the shareholder. But with the growth of business and how it impacts on society and other stakeholders, it has been found imperative and important that our reporting should not only focus on the entity itself, but on the entity and other stakeholders. Right. Then we have the capitals. Right. You would find that long back, our focus was mainly on one capital. But there is now a shift that a business should not just focus on one capital, but rather on the six, what we call the six capitals. Right. The traditional capital that we always know is the financial capital. Right. So this refers to the pool of funds available to the entity generated through debt and equity. Right. So here we're talking about the capital that the businesses earn is obtained from the owners and from borrowing. So that is the financial capital. Number two, manufactured capital. Right. So these are objects available to the organization to be used in the production of goods and services. For example, buildings, plant and machinery, furniture and equipment, motor vehicles, infrastructure, such as roads, ports, bridges, and any other such resources which can be employed in the generation of income. You would find that we can use our financial capital to obtain this manufactured capital. So you'd find that we are actually buying products of other entities. Right. Then we've got number 3, intellectual capital. So these are the knowledge-based resources, intangible assets, such as patents, copyrights, trademarks, software, formulas, knowledge, systems, and procedures of the organization. We can also have a franchise that we can be issuing out. So all these are intellectual capital. Right. Number 4, we have human capital, people side of assets. Right. These are the capabilities, competence, and experience of employees. Right. So here we will report on the employees that we have, the motivation, how they support the organization, the ethical values, the culture of the organization embedded within the human capital, and stuff like that. Right. Number 5, we have social and relationship capital. These are the institutions, and relationships within and between communities. Groups, networks, teams, stakeholders, and ability to share and gain information from these networks. Right. This can include shared norms or values, and behaviors. Within our groups, we can have the way that we do our things. Right. Key stakeholder relationships. Let's say we're highly reliant on a raw material from a supplier. How are we maintaining our relationship with the supplier? Right. So those can be examples that can be dealt with under the social and relationships capital. Right. Then we've got the natural capital, the God-given capitals. So these are the renewable and non-renewable. Environmental resources. And processes. So here we're talking about examples include note that a land does not fall under the manufactured capital. It's actually natural capital. A, water, minerals, forests. So all those God-given resources, they are part of the natural capital. So we should make sure that we harness and be able to create value from those resources. Right. So normally we should create a strategy whereby we understand we can be able to understand our internal and external environment to see how we can best use these resources and take care of maybe the opportunities that we get from the external environment and manage the risks that we might be able to face. Right. Any questions? Right. Then we'll look at the guiding principles. We have got about 7 guiding principles that have to be followed when 7 or 8 that have to be followed when we are preparing an integrated report. Right, intended.
Sorry, Eugene. The integrated report, is it every company that need to prepare one, or it's only the listed companies?
Actually, the integrated report, it was designed for profit companies. But you would find that it can be useful for any other companies to produce it. So it can be advantageous to produce it for all other companies, but it will not necessarily be a requirement.
Okay, so should other companies?
So it's not mandatory per se for other companies.
For other companies, okay.
Yes. But now with modern corporate governance, it can be advantageous to prepare it.
Okay.
Right. We have strategic, focused, and future orientation. Now, you would find that historically, our reports were just focusing on the past. That is our past performance. Right. But of late, we now have to also report on our strategy and how our strategy will be able to create value for ourselves and for the stakeholders within the short, medium, and long term. All right. So the report should provide insights into the organization strategy. And how it impacts creation of value in the short, medium, and long term. So you would you have to report on how you expect your strategy to create value. Right. So here you should also focus on the future. So you should provide a link between your past results and what how they can affect the future. Right. Connectivity of information. Right. You should be able to show in your integrated report that there is no isolation between the various factors affecting the entity. You should show how they relate to each other. So the report should show the relatedness of various factors affecting the entity. So we should be able to give clarity on the various elements that we have. So these so it should show connectivity between the following: content elements. We're going to look at the content elements very soon. The content elements of an integrated report. Past, present, and future. So that's when you can look at maybe the your past performance and how it will connect with the other things. Right, the capitals, financial, and other information. So rather than presenting financial information only, you can present things like, for example, accidents that happened during the period, returns that you had from your customers. But this can also be related to quantitative and qualitative information, rather than the historical focus, the traditional focus on quantitative information only. Right. So there can be important things. Maybe there can be strategic alliances that we entered into which are not reflected in the financial statements. Right. Even some damaging things, we should also report them. Management information, board information, and information reported externally. Right. Then we should also have, so all these things, there should be connectivity. Information in the integrated report. So we should not have a situation whereby one piece of information can be in conflict with the other. Other communications, and information from other sources. So there should be coherence and a link between all these things. Right. Number 3, stakeholder relationships. Right. Nature and quality of the relationships with key stakeholders. And the extent to which the organization takes into account the legitimate needs of the stakeholders. Remember, we cannot do everything, but to what extent are we taking their needs into account? So we have to understand, what do they expect from us, and to them, what do they take as value created? And we have to find ways of minimizing risks. Right. Materiality. Right. The report should disclose information on matters that substantially affect the organization. The ability to create value. So if there is, let's say, for example, there are challenges posed by COVID, which are affecting the organization heavily. There are pending court issues. There are resource limitations. There were key resignations. So we should be able to identify all those key matters and see which ones are very, very important. It's not like we will report on everything. So we have to see which are the important matters and which matters are we going to prioritize and take into account. So they should be integrated in the report. So it's not like we will report on everything. So that can it also includes the risks and opportunities that can be faced. Conciseness. Right. So the report should also include context, understand the strategy, governance, and performance of the entity of the organization. So there should be a balance whereby we include all the positive and negative information that can be relevant in understanding the entity. Right. Reliability and completeness. The information that we should provide in the report should be reliable and complete. So the integrated report should provide all matters positive and negative. In a balanced way without material error. So we should not sugarcoat our integrated report, but rather it should do include everything that can be able, and our information should be accurate to the extent that the users can be able to rely on it. So there should be, I think we learned about freedom from error, neutrality. There should not be any bias or any ill intentions whilst preparing the financial integrated report. We should be able to tell it as it is. If the entity is destroying value, let's report it. Remember, we said that we have to report everything: creation of value, preservation, and damage of value. So we should report on all things, whether positive or negative. So there should be a balance, and there should not be errors there. And our information should be complete. Of course, we know that there's a limitation in that. Usually, there should be a balance between cost and benefit. If the benefit that has to arise is more than the cost, it might be worth it not to look at it, but we should make sure that in as much as possible we provide all the important information that will be required. Right. Then 7, consistency and comparability. Our financial information should be provided in a way that we can be able to compare our integrated report. We can be able to compare the performance of the entity maybe over time. Right. So the report should be presented in a manner that allows comparison over time. And there should be consistency. Make it possible. So there should be consistency in our reporting. Because if we change the way we present our reports, it might be not be possible to compare information. So we should try by all means to ensure consistency along the way. Right. Any questions? Then the content elements. Right. The content elements, these are the contents that we expect, the 8 contents, which are supposed to sort of be addressed within the report. So these elements, although they are separate, but they are linked to each other. Right. These are the elements: organization, overview, and external environment. Right. So this part should address what the organization does and the circumstances under which it operates. So that means the mission, the vision. Then we'll also talk about the external environment. That is the important factors that are affecting the organization. This can be technological issues, market environment issues, and all those things. Right. Number 2, governance. Right. You have to include in your report how your structures promote the creation of value. How do we promote the creation of value? Through the structures that have been created, straight from the top, from the board going downwards. So how have we structured our organization to make sure that value is created? Then the business model. How have you structured your business so that you can be able to what? To create value. So we can talk about the inputs, the outputs, and the activities that are involved within the business. What do we do to create that value? How do we execute our strategy? So these things are interlinked. Because from number 1, we've got the mission, the objectives, and stuff like that. So in number 3, it's how basically we are executing that. Right. Number 4, risks and opportunities. Affecting the organization. So you have to identify the major risks that your organization faces. For example, the political risks, things like the electricity scenario that we have, which is challenging you, maybe technological issues that are that we have, compliance issues and stuff like that. You have to include them in your report. Mtandeni.
Number four,
Yes.
what did we say? Number 3 was Eugene?
Business model.
So under business model, normally what goes in the
Like how you are executing your business for you to create value.
so it's
Is that right? Let's say number one, you have your strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Then how is that a strategy? How are you executing it to create value? Like, for example, let's say, for example, you are producing products which you sell and export, or maybe you have got strategic alliances that we have that will be on your business model there.
So it's an operating context, like in operational.
Yes, the operating context of it.
Okay.
Like, what are the inputs that you normally have and the outputs that you generate from that system? They will also form part of that.
Okay, no, thanks.
Is that right? So it's an outcome of the strategy that we have on number one there. Right. Then here your major risks and the opportunities that you are facing. Is that right? Maybe let's say, for example, you managed to enter into an alliance with a provider of better technology, which is likely to create more value for you in future. Or maybe you managed to get an exclusive deal with the government for the next 5 years. All those should be included in the report. Strategy and resource allocation. As you can see, this is also linked to the mission that we have on number one. All right, so that means this is all about how you intend to execute your mission as on number one, and make sure that your business model will be able to lead you to achieving the objectives. Right. Then the performance. How did you perform? What were your results so far? So far this year, maybe the one that we are reporting, what was your progress? We have your report from the previous period. We knew that you wanted to achieve this and that. So what have you done? Have you created value? Have you destroyed value? Have you maintained value over the period? Are you progressing in the right direction? Right. Then outlook. Going forward, what are you expecting to face? What are the challenges that you are likely to face in future? What are the uncertainties that you are likely to face? For example, there was new legislation and we are not very sure what will happen in future. Or maybe our competitors have introduced the new technology which we can't cope with. All those things, we should also describe all those challenges that you are likely to face in the future and how you might be able to maneuver and survive. What are our capabilities to face those challenges that we are likely to face? Right. Then our basis of preparation. And presentation. Right. That means how have we determined what to include and what not to include in our report? What is the basis of determining that this is important, this is material, we should include it in the report? This is not material, we should not include it in the report. What's our strategy as far as how do we determine materiality? Remember, we said that we should only concentrate on material information. So as an organization, how are we defining that materiality for us to say we should include this and that? You should also give your reporting boundary, sort of the scope of what you have to report on. Any frameworks and methods that we have been following, then you should also include them. Right. So those are the important things that have to be covered within the integrated report. I think you can also be able to go on my NISA and you can be directed, you can be able to download the summary of the integrated report. Any questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, then thank you so much. So we'll meet next time. Please make sure that you read the integrated report. Thank you and God bless you richly.
Thank you.